Yeah. So I'm tired, and I know you all are tired, so bear with me. Um, so this class is on Sinatra. We used to teach Sinatra first, and then before we taught Rails, because Sinatra is sort of like Rails light. And then people were like, man, why do you bother teaching Sinatra? So now we're going to teach it afterwards, and we're going to see how that goes. You don't really need to know it to understand Rails. It's sort of like Rails without all this stuff in it. Let's see. Yeah, what you get in Sinatra is you get no file structure. So when you do Rails new, you get like 8,000 files. There is no Sinatra new. There's like nothing for Sinatra. You start off with nothing and then you just build in what you want. There are no form for helpers, no link to helpers, none of that stuff, no migrations built in for you. Pretty much everything that's built into Rails is not built into Sinatra. So, turn and talk for 30 seconds. Why might this be an advantage? Why would someone want to develop in Sinatra? Go. Turn and talk. All right. So really, I just had you turn and talk, so I had time to take some ibuprofen. So what'd you come up with?
Later.
Okay, Ryan?
Maybe less confusing.
Maybe less confusing. Yeah. What else? Adrian?
Maybe there's like less rules, like how in Rails if you do one little thing off, like nothing works. Maybe that is
Yeah.
less.
I like your hair, by the way. Okay.
And I was also thinking about how Rails is kind of limited, like with its methods and instances, like you can't call on each other. So I'm assuming that that's probably more flexible.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out, won't we? So if you're looking at this lesson plan, there are these Sinatra in the Wild, this Sinatra in the Wild page that's just a whole bunch of stuff using Sinatra. And so if you want, you can go ahead and take a look at this. But we're not going to do that right now. We're going to explore Sinatra by doing some Sinatra. We're going to create an app called Finatra, the world's greatest fish database. Yes, we're creating this literally just because that pun happened to work. I was going to do like Sinatra, like a database of sins, but then I thought that would get kind of weird, so I decided to go with Finatra. So to get started, if you don't have the lesson plan open, please open it and then clone down Finatra. And while you're doing that, I'm going to do that as well. Adam, there we go. Okay, so to start off, you've been given these 4 gems. So just because I feel like doing whatever I want, we're not going to use Postgres in this class. We're going to use something called SQLite. Not just so I can do whatever I want. Also because I think this is a cool database for you guys to see. The big difference is that Postgres stores data sort of in a mysterious location on your computer in a whole bunch of binary files. SQLite stores all of your data in one single file, actually in the folder you're working in right now. So when you run your migrations and stuff, you're going to see this little FinatraDB file pop up. You can look in there if you want, but it's going to be a whole bunch of binary data, so it's not going to look like much. But that's kind of cool. It makes your database super portable. It also means that you can't deploy it to Heroku, because Heroku, whenever your app falls asleep, deletes everything in your app so that it can free up memory space, that's fine with Postgres because all of that data is stored somewhere else. But Heroku won't let you use SQLite because it would just delete your database all the time, and that would make for kind of a bad app. But it's kind of cool to work with. So it works the exact same way as Postgres. We're going to use Active Record the exact same way. Literally, the only two differences are that we're writing SQLite instead of Postgres in two different places, and you're going to see a little file pop up. But that's it. Okay, so now that you have cloned that down, I would actually like you to tilt down your computer so that you don't code along with me, because I'm going to go pretty fast through this. I'm going to go through all the steps, and then I'm going to ask you guys to go through the steps later on. And this way it'll just make sure that like no one gets a typo or anything and then falls behind. Cool? Cool. All right, so, and Nick is the Slack in the back if you want to get on that. That wasn't the right way to frame that at all. Sorry. Not thinking well today. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do with Sinatra, when I was first creating a Sinatra app, I wouldn't even have these files. I would do like git init, and I would have an empty folder. So I'm already giving you a leg up by creating this gem file and this git ignore in here. This git ignore has the name of the database in it. Remember that database pops up into its own little file. You probably don't want to push that database to GitHub. So I'm putting it in the git ignore so that it won't be included in the git stuff. All right, so that's enough sort of talking about stuff. I'm going to create a file called app.rb. You can call it whatever you want, but I would say app.rb is just sort of convention. And then I need to require Sinatra as the first thing in here. And then I'm going to do this. Welcome to Sinatra. All right, so 2 questions. Any thoughts as to what this get does? Or get slash? Mohammed?
Is it taking you to the home, to the index page?
Well, it's not taking you there. Not quite taking you there. You're on the right track. I'm just looking for it phrased a bit differently. Matt?
Is it requesting that?
Yeah. So this is how you set up roots in Sinatra. In Rails, roots have their own folder, and then all your views and controllers and everything have a different folder. In Sinatra, your roots folder and your controller are the exact same, your roots file and your controller files are all the same file. So this is saying when someone goes to slash, I want to show them this piece of text. And so I'll make that happen. I'm going to type ruby app.rb. Okay, so here's the first thing. So this uses a thin web server with the code name GobBluth, or GoBluth. Joe, excuse me. I don't actually watch the show. All right, so this should be a pretty easy question. With Rails, to view a Rails app, you go to localhost 3000. Based off of what you see up here, what am I going to go to view a Sinatra app? 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. So let's try that. Just refresh the page. I wanted to do this. 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. I got welcome to Sinatra. So unless you tell it to render a piece of HTML, whatever is the last thing returned out of here is going to be the thing that shows up on the page. So if I do like 9 times 3, I should get, it's not changing. So this is one thing about Sinatra, and you're also going to see this in Node later on. The server doesn't automatically restart. So the server doesn't know about changes you've made to your files unless you quit and restart the server. So in order to see 27, I would need to do ruby app.rb, and now I see nothing. I wonder why that is. I'm not even really sure. But quitting and restarting all the time is going to get really old. So in the gem file, I included this gem called rerun. You can use this to have Sinatra automatically detect whenever you've made some sort of a change. To use it, so before I typed ruby app.rb, now I'm going to type rerun, and then in quotes, ruby app.rb. Okay, and now, well, I'm not sure why that 27 isn't showing up. Let me put this back to I'll just put it back to welcome to Sinatra. So I just saved it, and you can see that there's this change detected, one modified app.rb thing right in there. So it can detect when you save a file, and it's going to automatically restart your server. And so now I'm back to welcome to Sinatra. But it takes a second to restart the server. So if I just change one thing and then save it and refresh my page, yeah, there we go. I'm going to get an error because it's still in the process of restarting. So you got to wait like a second or two, and then it'll work. Okay, so questions so far. This doesn't really do anything yet, but so far we've looked at some basic routing, basic controllers, and that rerun. Questions about those? All right, cool. Well, did you have a question? Way to turn that into. What's up?
You may have already answered this, but okay, so why do we have the roots and the controllers all over?
So the idea with Sinatra is that you're probably not, it's going to be a much simpler app. You're probably not going to have as many models and everything as you would in Rails. Because of that, there's not really an advantage to having everything spread out in separate files. You could, but that's much nicer just when you have like a butt ton of different routes that you have to worry about. It would just be really confusing to see all that in one file in Rails, which is why they have you spread it out. In Sinatra, you're probably going to make like a 1 or 2 model CRUD app that's going to have like maybe 3 or 4 routes. You can do more if you want, but it's on you to like set up all those shortcuts and everything. Sinatra just gives you like the most basic thing right out of the box. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't set up the roots for you, like how Rails break routes.
Nope. Yeah, so any sort of shortcut you had in Rails, you no longer have in Sinatra. You don't have rake routes, you don't have like resources, like artists, you don't have any of that stuff. Doing everything from scratch. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Anything else? All right, cool. So what's the next thing I'm gonna do here? I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, so this is fine for printing out text, but there's no HTML on here. So let's actually get some HTML on here. By default, Sinatra, so this is one shortcut built into Sinatra. By default, Sinatra looks for a folder called views. And so you can set it so that you could call this folder Wombat or whatever, but by default, it looks for views. Inside here, I'm going to create a layout.erb. Actually, I'm going to call it main.erb. So the names of the files inside the views folder don't matter. It does matter that it's called a views folder, but the names of the files don't matter at all. Like in Rails, you had that like application or that layout / application.html.erb. None of that in here. You can call these whatever you want. But I'm calling this main.erb just to remind myself that I'm going to use this as the template for everything else on my page. Sinatra. Okay, and then I'm going to create an index as well. I'm not even going to put anything in it yet. And I wouldn't have to call this index either. I could call this whatever I want, but index makes the most sense to me. Welcome to Sinatra. As I'm doing this, what's different between how I'm naming these files and how files are named in Ruby? Yeah, there's no .html. So in Rails, it needs to be .html.erb. In Sinatra, it's just .erb. But they behave the exact same way, right?
What is the ERB?
ERB stands for Embedded Ruby. That's the clown hats, the little angle bracket percent thing. You can use that in Sinatra as well. We haven't quite gotten to that yet.
If you did name your file index.html.erb, would it not work?
It would not. It needs to be .erb. I'm sure there's a way to set it so that it recognizes .html.erb, but I'm not sure what that is. Okay, so I've created a layout. I'm calling it main, and I've created an index page to show it. You also don't get that like implicit rendering thing that you do in Rails. You need to say what it is that you want to show. So I'm going to do ERB, the name of the page I want to show, and then the name of the layout that I want to insert it into. So I'm taking my index view, I'm taking index.erb, and I'm inserting it into main. And then when I run this, I get a whole lot of nothing. I do see some stuff in here, but my welcome to Sinatra is not showing up. Why? Sanjay?
Looks like that thing to go in there.
The what?
We didn't link the one with this contract to go into there properly. Is that right?
Yeah, so how do I do that?
Something with the tiles, probably.
No, not with that. It's the exact same thing as in Rails.
I was gonna ask because you put yield.
Yes, exactly. So this is just like in Rails. I'm going to put yield in here. And now, whenever I'm telling it to put a view in there, suddenly that view shows up. And so if I look at the HTML, I can see that welcome to Sinatra is now right in there. And that's pretty much it for showing views. It's just a whole bunch of this. Now we haven't gotten to including variables in those views yet, like instance variables and all that stuff, but we will. So now I'd like to pause and let you guys get caught up. So why don't you take like 8 minutes and get to this point, just having welcome to Sinatra. In the lesson plan, it describes what each commit does. So we're only up through the second commit, but please try to get up through there. Totally welcome to work together as always.